Hello everyone, welcome to another coffee break. It's Steve Barrett here, the editorial director of PR Week, and delighted to be here with Bob Pearson, who's the CEO of the Bliss Group. And great to welcome you to the show, Bob. How are you doing?
Steve, doing great, and thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
I am impressed by that beard. I can only aspire to achieving such beardness. But is that a COVID thing, or have you been sporting? You've been sporting a beard for a while now, haven't you?
Yeah, I have been for a while, but it's with COVID-19, you just can't get to a barber shop, so I just let it go. Now I look like a backup for TZ Top, I guess.
Yeah, so obviously we know you well from your time at W2O Group and sort of a tech specialist, tech PR specialist. But since January, you've been the CEO of the Bliss Group. Tell us, first of all, briefly about the Bliss Group and also how you got involved and how the connection came about.
It's a great story. I mean, Michael Roth and I, Michael's one of the partners of Bliss. And
no relation to the former Interpublic Group.
No, not that Michael Roth, the other Michael Roth. Yes, and we worked together at GCI and at Novartis and also at W2O. And Michael said, you really need to take a look at our firm. And it was more just to, quite frankly, maybe be an advisor or something like that. But as I looked at the firm, what I saw is what I would call the best kind of geeks. People who really go deep in financial services, really deep in the business of healthcare, really deep in professional services. And I just kind of fell in love with that. I mean, that's what you really, I love that when people go super deep into an industry. And from there it became, hey, let's become part of the team. And here we are today. And
you're based in Austin. You're sporting an Austin soccer shirt there. Good to see. Is Bliss, does that come out of Austin? I know they've got offices around the country.
Right now, we have about 60 people that are in New York City, but we also have our first person here in Austin, and we will be building a presence in both cities, and you'll probably see us in other cities over time. So, really where the talent is going to drive where we go, and you know how it works, Steve. I mean, it's client demand, and also where talent availability is. So, but New York will always be our power center, if you will.
And is it too early to say about, you talk about talent, but talent has been working from home or working from anywhere over the last 15 months. How do you see that developing in terms of going back to maybe an office-based work environment, or are you very flexible about that at Bliss?
We take a relaxed view. I mean, what I say when asked is the most important thing is, are we providing the most value possible for our clients? That's number one. And the second thing is, are we providing the best careers for our team? And if we're accomplishing those two goals, it's not actually that relevant how many days we're in the office. And, if I'm honest about it myself, I mean, I've been in the office, 1 or 2 days a week my entire career, because I'm always out with clients and you're out there traveling. So I think that COVID has kind of taught us that we can actually really listen to each other and figure out what works as long as we accomplish those two goals.
Yeah. And last week you made some announcements about Bliss, about the leadership team, and some sort of go forward strategy. To talk us through that, talk us through the people and talk us through the strategy moving forward.
Yeah, so I mean, I got involved with Bliss in January, and we took our time to really get to know each other. And one of the things we saw right away, which I love, is every one of those announcements of a leader position is internal. So the strength for Bliss was already inside Bliss, and it was just really a matter of saying, okay, who's going to run which practice? So we have 3 practices we're building out of significance, and there'll be a 4th soon where we'll be totally focusing on tech as well. But then we also have a head of growth and a head of innovation. In fact, I was just on my last call was with our head of innovation, Sally Slater, talking about a very cool media offering that we'll be announcing in July. So we're going to continue to look at how to push the envelope in communications, apply tech, apply analytics, apply really other parts of the marketing mix, but coming out in a way that communicators can benefit from it.
Talk us through that sort of communications technology element to PR, because it's become so much more important over the years, and people are using both sides of the brain now. It's not just writing and more creative stuff, although data can lead to great creativity. Talk us through how the influence that's having on the profession and how how that's influencing what Bliss does.
Yeah, so there's a couple of, there's so many things, but one or two examples. One of the things we always talk about is audience architecture with our clients. And so what that really means is the audience is already out there doing and saying things and giving us the answers we need. So if we do analytics correctly, we can see what an audience needs before we develop a campaign. The chances of us aligning then go way up. More importantly, if you're actually tracking your audience correctly, if your campaign is not exactly on target, you can adjust it. So the ability to be more agile with analytics is key. And we really can't be locking into campaigns anymore where we're saying we're going to do the same thing for the year. We have to say, okay, what are we learning maybe by day or by week, and figuring out how we adjust. We were just talking about that too, like with, something as simple as owned media, where too often we build a website and that becomes static, and yet the story is actually quite agile for a brand. Well, the two have to keep up with each other, and that's a common mistake that people make. So some of these are real big picture ideas, and some of them are just really pragmatic mechanics of doing things better through analytics.
Can you give us an example of how that's worked in practice with clients and how it's really supercharged what they're doing?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we're really proud of is we got asked to work on 2 Johns Hopkins COVID-19 trials, and just super relevant to the times we're in. And so there we applied a peso strategy. We're doing a great job in earned media with our Bliss team, but we're also doing paid media. We're doing shared, we're doing owned. And with the analytics, we could see which trial sites were going to be most productive. How do we reach a more diverse population by city? And we've helped Johns Hopkins enroll quite a few patients in the trials. So you can see the actual cause and effect. But I think that in this case, it's really meaningful because not only are you getting people into the trials so we can learn more, but also how do you improve the diversity of trials is something everyone talks about. And really it requires more precise analytics so we can make sure we're getting the right story to the right people to encourage them to consider joining the trial.
Now, you mentioned bringing in the health element earlier, and obviously your legacy at W2O is sort of bringing health and tech together in a very successful way. And do you see yourself kind of replicating that at Bliss and doing the same sort of things, or what's new about that offer that you're going to have?
Yeah, I mean, we'll do it differently, because for me personally, I just like innovating continually. But I'll give you an example of this. We are working on a model now. It's a disease-based media model. So if you and I, Steve, we're going to go out and launch a new drug tomorrow, the real question I have in my mind is, where are all the people who have that disease or disorder? How can we rank that? And how do we turn that into a model so I can say, here are the 37 cities that we should be focusing on. Here's the differences in those cities for that same disease. So then you can figure out how to do your narrative so it will actually align and meet the needs of people more effectively. Too much stuff that happens in healthcare is still very like, let's put millions of dollars behind something and blow it out, as opposed to say, let's get in there and figure out exactly how to reach people in Tampa, Florida, or Los Angeles, or wherever it may be. So we're looking at things like that.
So it's kind of bringing smart media planning or even direct marketing into, like you said, into that peso mix and mixing it up with the earned media.
Exactly right. I mean, even something as simple in shared media of, usually people don't go to more than 4 channels on a regular basis every day. Well, which channels and why, and in which order, and what do they get out of each channel, whether it's Facebook or YouTube or something else. So understanding that like cross-platform journey is sort of like the new marketing mix, which is right in the wheelhouse of a communicator. And I've always believed that communications professionals are really right on the cutting edge of being the ones who can actually figure out how to tell stories more effectively and combine marketing into comms, as opposed to the other way around.
Tell us about Austin, because that's a fascinating city. Obviously, we know it really well as a tech center, as Southwest. But a lot of people relocated, didn't they, during COVID? And a lot of them landed in Austin. How is the city changing, and how has that changed the city? And does that open up more talent pools that you can tap into?
Without a doubt. I mean, it's becoming like the number 2 place after Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley is always going to be number 1. There's no reason to think that will change. But there's a lot of very smart people gravitating here. So it's a lot more startups. I'm seeing a growing healthcare industry here, certainly a growing tech industry. Consumer is starting to take off, which actually wasn't happening before. So you're basically having everything you have in a city like that. And it's, I think if you look at the number of California license plates, there's quite a few. It's almost not sure if there's more Texas or California in some parts of the city here.
Yeah. Have you seen Elon Musk driving around yet in his Tesla?
I haven't seen him personally, but you do see a lot more Teslas, and he's doing a great job. He's come in and he's just energizing the city, not just with Teslas, but he set up a tunnel boring company here as well, and of course he's flying his aircraft from Texas. Pretty awesome. So there's some big names coming in here.
Is that a problem for California, that migration? Because it does seem that people are sort of leaving the area, and they're not particularly happy with it, on various levels, whether it's culturally, socially, or even the political environment.
I think California has an advantage in that it's a magnet for people. It always will be. Great climate, interesting place to live, a lot of money, quite frankly, for tech. But they're always going to bring people in. The question is, do they retain them? And I think that's what you're seeing, Steve, is Austin's not the only city benefiting from this. I think there's, look at what Pete Blackshaw is doing in Cincinnati with Centrifuse. There's a lot of money going into the Cincinnati area for tech. And I think that's great to see, because my view has always been smart people live everywhere in the world, not in one state.
Yeah, there's so many amazing cities around the states, aren't there? And, if maybe this has shown the last year that you don't have to be based in San Francisco or LA or New York or Chicago. So,
exactly.
What about the tech sector generally? It's kind of under siege a little bit, especially big tech and some of the big social media companies. And there seems to be a slightly adversarial relationship developing between them and the media. And you've seen Andreessen Horowitz setting up their own content platform because they want to go direct. But that's nothing new there. Owned media is nothing new. But do you have a view on that? Do you have a view on the sort of relationship between Silicon Valley and the big tech firms and the media generally?
I do. And I do a lot of work, Steve, as well on teaching on how to combat disinformation and extremism worldwide. So I have a view that goes across 190 countries of the UN. There's a lot of need for the social channels to get better at policing hate and extremist behavior. And we need that in many other countries besides the US to happen more effectively. So on the one hand, I think Facebook and Google and others are trying really hard to get it right, but it's not a situation where you can just nail it. So I don't think we're having the right dialogue, and we're playing a little bit of the cat and mouse game here in the US. So, do we repeal Section 230? Is Facebook good or bad? Rather than have a conversation to say, what's the right thing to do? How does public and private sector work together? Because really what we're doing is we're saying there's bad actors. We don't really want to have a place in our society in terms of their voice. And we're not having that conversation in a way that's healthy right now, in my view. But we could.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. We definitely need to have that dialogue. Just to finish, what are the innovations you're seeing in technology? We saw the rise of audio social networks, for example, in lockdown, especially Clubhouse, but Twitter Spaces, Spotify's got their own, Facebook's looking at their own. Have you a view on that and anything else that's caught your eye over the last sort of 12 months?
I think, the pace of streaming content and agile content, TikTok is a great example. I'm not dismissive of TikTok at all. I think it represents the future in how we actually can develop content quickly for brands to tell a story. So how to become more TikTok-like in how we create with analytics, that's a key. There's other things too that are not as maybe as important as TikTok, but they're interesting. Sonic signatures, the ability, MasterCard is pioneering this. Those sound will tell us that something is actually verified or not. That's interesting. And then I think there's just the other bigger picture thing of how do we protect ourselves? So I think that the corporate reputation aspect of our business is evolving rapidly. So we're looking at everything from ransomware to disinformation to all the risks that can occur to not only executive, but their company and the communities they serve. And so I think issues management is going to have like a 2.0 moment in the next couple of years.
Yeah, and I think CEOs really understand that now, don't they? And they want that big help from their communications function, and they need help from their agencies. So yeah, lots of fertile ground ahead, Bob. Looking forward to seeing what you're going to do at the Bliss Group.
Perfect. We'll stay in touch, Steve. We're having fun, so that's there's a lot of.
That's important too, for sure. We need some fun.
Exactly.
Good to chat.
Same here, Steve. Have a great day.